Hello, friends. Bonjour, hi. Welcome back. We are back in the kitchen once again, and today we are making a very special dessert. It is for my partner Anthony. It is his birthday tomorrow, so we are making his birthday cake. It's a flourless chocolate cake, and it is a recipe that I found online. It was someone that made the recipe, someone was inspired by it, made it their own, and then someone took it over, and now it is my own. So I initially took the recipe, it was from Milk Street. And as someone with a background in UX UI design, I felt like the user experience from this recipe was honestly quite awful. I don't know how to say it. It was very confusing. I've been cooking for more than 10 years. I've read a bunch of cookbooks, different recipes online. I've tried a bunch of recipes, and I would say that this is probably one of the worst I've seen. I'm sorry, Milk Street, if you're watching this, but you guys need to do better. Anyway, so we're just gonna get started. Of course, I rewrote all of the instructions after making all the changes that I wanted to do to it. So it is now my version of the chocolate flourless cake. So it's filled with, of course, chocolate. You've guessed it, of course, yes. So it's a lot of chocolate. I add some instant coffee to it to really kick it up a notch. And there's some orange juice, orange zest, and there's some bourbon to it. So it's like bourbon orange chocolate. It's delicious. So I've made it a few times before. So for the people that have tried it, you might recognize the cake. The recipe has changed a little bit since then, but you're more than welcome to go get the recipe online. So you can go get it and watch this video to see the whole process. It seems a lot more intimidating than it actually is. And I'll make sure that the instructions are actually very clear, so it's easy to follow. So anyway, enough rambling. So we're just gonna get started with the ingredients. And we are back. So we have all of the ingredients here. So we have the chocolate chip, semi-sweet dark chocolate chips. We have butter, some eggs, the orange that will zest and will juice, some bourbon, sugar for the cake, sugar for dusting, the instant coffee, and the secret ingredient that I add at the end. It's called amaro. It's an Italian digestive, so it's really good. I usually have it after dinner, but it's very good with this cake because it's floral, it's a little bit citrusy, so it'll really bring out the orange in the cake, while the rest is going to be more like chocolate focused. So it's very good. I highly recommend. It's a lot of steps, but once you get started, this video will be pretty clear and the instructions will be very clear. You should try it. It's definitely good. It's not too much, so I highly recommend. So we'll just get started by zesting and juicing the orange, and I'll explain that into details because that was the part in the initial recipe that was very confusing to me. So I'll do it and I'll explain it to you in details. Okay, so for the orange, let's move a few things to the side. Okay, so start by zesting one full orange. So I use a potato peeler. I feel like that's the best way to go with this. And you want to make sure that you don't get too much of the white part of the orange. If there's a little bit, it's not too bad, but make sure you don't go too thick, because otherwise you'll get too much white and then it'll be a little bit bitter. But it'll cook in sugar for like 20 minutes, so it'll be fine. I'm always really scared of cutting my fingers, even with a potato peeler, even though it's kind of like impossible, I guess. See, I almost did. I didn't, but it was traumatic. And ta-da! This is done. Okay, and now we juice the orange. supposed to juice in the juicer. Okay, so the fun part. So we need a saucepan. And in the saucepan, we measure, I'm referring to my own notes because they were clear. You measure 3 tablespoons. You put the 3 tablespoons in the saucepan, the rest of the orange juice, measuring cup. Like this. Then you add the bourbon to this. Okay. Sure. And then in the orange juice and bourbon liquid, you add enough water so that you have 1 cup of liquid total, which is water. And I recommend using a measuring cup to add the water so that you don't add too much if you just use the faucet or whatever. So 1 cup total. And then we can get started with the caramel. Okay, so now that we have our cup of liquid total, put this aside. And in the saucepan with the 3 tablespoons of orange juice, you add the sugar for the cake, for dusting. Yes. And you add the zest. See, gotta have nice instructions so that it's clear. So on my little piece of paper that I had written, add sugar to the 3 tablespoons of orange juice in the saucepan, then add the zest strips. See, so easy. So on medium-high heat, I put the saucepan with the sugar, the orange juice, and the zest strips in it, and we'll just let that sugar dissolve in the orange juice. It'll start to get a little bit golden, an amber color, and then once we get to that point, we'll remove from the heat. We will add the bourbon orange juice mixture with the water, and then we'll dissolve the caramel. And yeah, and then we'll have our caramel to add to our chocolate and butter. New camera angle unlocked. Welcome inside the actual kitchen of our place. So it is our lovely, I call it my grandma's kitchen because it has blue countertops. It has the lovely little tiles with vegetables on it. It has the blue handles. This microwave doesn't work, but it is useful to store our mitts and our whatever else. So, God, that was loud. So this is what we use it for. So anyway, I'm just rambling, but to go back to the recipe, in our saucepan with the orange juice, the sugar, and the zest, we put that on medium. We put that on the stove for the sugar to start dissolving in the orange juice and get acquainted with the zest. So this is what we're doing right now. So we're just waiting for that to get to like a nice golden color to turn more into a caramel. And then we'll add the rest of the orange juice in the bourbon mixture. So we are getting right now a really nice bubble. We are getting a nice color coming. So while that is going, the original recipe didn't call for that, but I found that the first time I did it, okay, we'll reduce that because this is going crazy. So as I was saying, the original recipe didn't call for that, but this is what I did after the first time I tried this cake because it was a bit of a disaster. So I melt my butter and my chocolate together on a double boiler. In the recipe, they said that this caramel liquid is hot enough to melt the chocolate and the butter, but I felt like the first time I did it, there was chunks of butter in it. So didn't like that. So we're just gonna melt our butter and our chocolate together. So with our lovely sugar dissolving, God, this is going crazy. It smells so nice though. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something quite useful. Yes, I do remember now. Jesus. So with this sugar, you've probably noticed, for the people that haven't noticed, I'm not using a spoon, I'm not using a spatula, I'm not using anything. Every time that I want to just like make sure that everything is spreading nicely, you just swirl. Don't use any utensils to do that. You just swirl it and it'll be fine. On the back burner, we now have our double boiler situation. So a little saucepan with some water at the bottom. And I'm just gonna pop that on. I usually use this pot to do the double boiler situation, but I forgot. So this will have to do. Oh, and also, we'll bake the cake after all of this is done. So you need to preheat your oven to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Our oven is running a little bit low. So I have to put it more like a 300, 305. I highly recommend you get an oven thermometer. It really makes a difference. Because I don't know, just to make sure that you're cooking your food properly and you follow instructions, because sometimes instructions are very, very important. For example, I did macarons, the proper French macaron. I did macaron for Christmas, and you have to be very, very precise with your temperature. So highly recommend getting an oven thermometer. Okay, this is boiling. We'll just reduce the heat. We want to simmer. We don't want a boil, because otherwise you can actually burn your chocolate even though you're in the double boiling situation or double boiler situation. And I'll just wait for the chocolate to melt a little bit more, and then I'll add the butter, because the butter will melt very quickly. Because my butter right now is room temperature, so I'll just melt quickly. So I don't need it to be in too fast, and it'll create almost like a ganache situation, except we're not whisking it. So it's not gonna be a ganache, but you get the point. It smells so good. Okay, I'll just finish melting the chocolate, and when this is exactly where it needs to be, I'll show you exactly what we're gonna do next, but I'll just finish this off camera because it's gonna take forever otherwise. Well, not forever, but it's boring at this point. And we are back. It took literally like 3 minutes, and now we're exactly where we need to be. So we cut the heat, remove that from the heat. Then we slowly and carefully add this orange juice bourbon water mixture to this. It'll solidify. It'll go into a caramel. Don't be scared. I'll be fine. So go like this. Now pop this back on the heat, and we'll just let the caramel basically melt away, and then we'll have a liquid. And right now I think our chocolate it's almost done. Yeah. So at this point I'm very comfortable with this recipe because I've done it multiple times. But if you find all these steps a little bit intimidating, I recommend like melting the chocolate and your butter ahead of time, and then you can do the caramel, and then like kind of just do one step at a time. But if you like this recipe and you end up making it more often, you'll see it's very easy and you'll get comfortable with it, just like any recipe. It smells amazing. I know I keep saying that, but it is true. It smells amazing. As at this stage, the caramel has been bubbling away, slowly melting. I like to just use a little bit of a spoon. I find that sometimes there is some caramel that gets stuck at the bottom, so I like to just help it a little bit. Okay, so our chocolate and butter situation is done. Everything is nice and glossy and melted. So our caramel has dissolved, so it's more like a caramel syrup with the orange zest in it. So now we're just gonna cut the heat. We're gonna add our Amaro, and then we'll pour that straight into our melted chocolate. And a splash. The Amaro is totally optional. It just brings the flavor of the orange zest and the orange juice a lot more, because there is some citrus, some floral notes in the Amaro, but totally up to you. You don't have to add it. Then, with a fine mesh strainer, we're just gonna strain this to get the orange zest here because we want to keep those to garnish. Whew, it smells boozy. So I have my oranges in here. Just let that cool. And we'll just mix all of this. Try to not incorporate any air, so we're not whisking. We're just using the same spatula that we had to just combine without incorporating air because we don't want bubbles. We want a nice, glossy, almost like a chocolate mousse cake in a way. And then our last ingredients for this, actually two. I forgot my instant coffee. Throw that in. See, very important to have your notes written nicely so you don't forget anything. Like I just did. But it's my recipe, so you won't forget. Okay, so this is done. Our last ingredients are eggs. So to make it a cake so that it can stick together, we're gonna add eggs. Don't worry, the eggs won't cook when it touches the chocolate. The chocolate isn't that hot. It has a very low melting point, so it's not super hot. This was just simmering, so it's not super hot, so your eggs won't cook. Once you add them in, you don't have to temper them. You can just throw them in it, mix it, that'll be fine. So I have 6 eggs that I'm just gonna beat with a fork, and we're just gonna add them in our chocolate and just mix it with the same spatula. And once again, no whisking because it'll bring air into our cake. This is not what we want. We want a glossy cake with no air in it. Okay, so off camera, I have lined a springform pan, a 9-inch, with some parchment paper at the bottom, put some butter, parchment paper, a little bit more butter on top of the parchment paper, and buttered the sides. Now we're just gonna pour the batter into this so we can bake the cake. I have chocolate all over my fingers, woohoo! Try to get all of it, all this deliciousness. And if there's any bubbles, you can just smooth them out. And now, to bake the cake, you will need a baking sheet with a rack so that if the cake leaks a little bit, we'll just go in there and at the bottom of your oven. I should have put the springform ahead of time on this in case it leaked. It didn't, thankfully. And now we put the cake in the oven to bake slowly. Yes, okay, great, awesome. Thank you so much. Very nice. Ta-da. So we put in the oven for probably 45 minutes until the center barely jiggles. So when it's firm enough, but the center is still like a little bit jiggly, barely, then that's when it's done. And then after that, we'll pull it out of the oven, let it cool, and then put it in the fridge overnight. And then we'll eat it tomorrow for Anthony's birthday. So I'll show you exactly what it looks like when the cake is coming out of the oven. So I'll see you in roughly 45 minutes. And we are back. The cake is done. So we're just gonna pull it out of the oven. I'll show you what it looks like. Oh my God, it smells, oh God. Oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Like I woke up and it was like
Chocolate.
it smelled like fresh bread. And I was like, who could be making bread? And that's probably the cake.
So now we're just gonna let the cake cool until we can actually pop off the springform. before we do that, we're just gonna run a very sharp knife around the edges to make sure it hasn't sticked. Oh, looks so good. Delicious. Now we're just gonna let it cool a little bit, and then we'll remove the cake from the spring form and we'll put it in the fridge overnight. And while the cake was baking, I removed the orange zest from the strainer and I put them in sugar, and we're just gonna let them just sit in the sugar overnight, and then we'll use them and we'll cut them tomorrow into little strips and we'll use that to decorate the cake. And yeah, so when this is ready, I'll show you the process of removing the spring form or the cake from the spring form, and we'll put it in the fridge. And
Wow.